Hello, I think we are on.
We can see the participants joining. Hello, everybody. Welcome.
Welcome indeed. I am just, there we go, setting up my screen. We'll give a couple minutes for people to arrive. And perhaps what I will do is just put up our first screen as they are arriving, Priya.
Okay.
Mhm. If you're finding yourself if you are intending to be on the webinar with Priya and I, coaching with an awareness, embracing diversity and honoring unique experiences, you are in the right place.
And if you did not intend to be here, but you'd like to be here, we welcome you too. Thanks for the hearts. It makes me feel so good when people join and they give us all these hearts. Thank you.
I'm just noticing when I screen share, I no longer see the chat. Um, Curious if there's a way. I won't be sharing the
To
screen a
open
lot,
all.
but yeah. Oh well, for now, once it's up, Priya, then I'll have you share if there's anything important coming in.
Sure,
I
I'll
love
keep
that
an eye on
hearts
the
are
chat.
coming in. Okay,
Yeah. Can you see
great.
the reactions though? You can see the hearts.
No, oh, there, maybe up
Oh,
there.
there.
Yeah.
Okay. Welcome. I'm glad you're in the right place. I feel I'm in the right place too. Kristen, you and I, or at least we're in the right place.
Nice. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. We're excited to share some ideas on coaching with awareness, embracing diversity, and honoring unique experience. Wow, how many times did we go over that title?
Yeah. Yeah. Wonderful. Um, So maybe, Priya, as people are joining, we can say a little bit about us and what has us here passionately sharing this webinar with everyone. And so I'll hand it over to you. And then,
Sure. So my name is Priya Nalkur, and my pronouns are she and her. And what has me passionately attached to this topic is my own journey of inclusion and exclusion, and noticing the patterns of that narrative of exclusion happening with almost all of my coaching clients over the years. And I've been coaching for now over 15 years. And it's just so present and alive, the same way things like identity and values are alive. And yet we don't talk about it a whole lot in coaching. And there are ways to treat it and talk about it. So that's what we're here to start to skim the surface on today.
yeah, and I'm Kristen Maki. For those of you that recognize me by a former name, my previous name was Kristen Bentley. And I am passionate about this topic partly because for the first 5 or 6 years of my coaching career, I really didn't have this expanded awareness that we are going to highlight today. I really looked at coaching from an individual perspective and working with my clients from an individual perspective. And then really started to learn as I started to do some of my own deeper work and my anti-racism work, anti-oppression work. I started to really understand how important it is to bring in a bigger awareness about our clients' lives beyond their individual experience, and also for us, as coaches and human beings growing too. And that the personal development is never separate from our lived experience and how we've navigated and traveled the world. So I am excited to be here with all of you today and with Priya.
I can add two things. One is we want to also introduce you to Denise, who is our tech support here. We wouldn't be able to get to where we are without her help. So if you need any tech support, you can chat directly to Denise in your chat box. The other thing I want to highlight is that Kristen and I know each other. So we've worked together as co-facilitators. I run a company called the RoundTable Institute. We do inclusive coaching, and I had the pleasure of working with Kristen on designing some of our materials. And we do run a program on coaching for using justice, equity, diversity, and inclusive perspectives. And Kristen was also part of that program with me. So we go way back.
Yeah, yeah. And a good portion of what I've learned and how I've grown as a coach is part of taking Priya's program, which we'll have the link for that at the end of the webinar for you. I just saw someone in the chat. Special hello to Nikki. Please go ahead in the chat and write in where you're located, where you're calling in from and joining us today. And also, we'd love to hear what brought you here to this webinar today. We've got folks from all over. Milan. Wow, Milan, wonderful. Thank you. You asked many different places, Buenos Aires, Toronto. So I am, well, actually, Priya and I are both Canadians, not living in Canada right now. I'm currently in Costa Rica, but I'm from, raised my children in the Barrie area, but from Sudbury originally. And Priya.
Yeah, living in Austin, Texas now by way of Ottawa, Ontario, and London, Ontario. So happy to see so many familiar places here. I've also lived in Dubai and lived in the Middle East, DEI coaching here. Wonderful, Silver. I love seeing the range of places you're coming from and why you're here. Thanks for answering that one too.
Yeah, so many places and so many names I recognize. So thanks for being here. Wonderful. All right, Priya. Just there's a few. I'm going to share my screen once again because we don't have a lot of agreements here um, for this webinar, but
I
we do.
wanted to highlight if I can, because we did ask,
Mhm,
what are you hoping to get out of, or
mhm.
why are you here? And there's a really an interesting one here. Everyone who's shared. I've had a handful of clients with such completely different life experiences that I couldn't even begin to understand, and I want to know how to better support them. Lovely. And I think that's exactly the right mindset to be in, right? Like it was curiosity, like how can I better support my clients when they're different, but also when they're so similar to me. It takes the exact same mechanics and mindset, knowing that you and I are not the same. We may have so much proximity in our identities, and yet my job is to not compare, but to uplift and support your development.
Yeah. And I love what you're highlighting there, Priya, to be curious, even though we have proximity or what might seem on the surface, similar identities, experiences, each and every one of us have unique experiences of that. And to be curious in the face of similarities and curious in the face of what seems to be perceived differences, too. So that's what we're going to invite you into today is to come with curiosity and an open mind to what we have to offer for you today. We also know, and please also put in the chat, if you are brand new to CTI, please let us know in the chat because CTI has its own jargon, has its own language. And if we are using that throughout the program and you're not sure or don't understand the language that we're using, then please ask for clarification in the chat.
And to just reveal a bias here, I was trained in CTI over a decade ago, but I've also done many other trainings as Kristen has. So some of the language may sound familiar to CTI, some of it may not. So there's no prerequisite for joining today, but feel free to ask for clarification, no matter how we're talking about these techniques.
There's also going to be a demo coaching a little bit later, but before we go into that demo coaching, we're going to offer you some frameworks and also reference some skills that you're already familiar with as a coach. And we're going to highlight how they can be used in the context of expanding awareness and really helping create the space for your client to be safe, feel safe, and open to bringing all aspects of their whole person. So we request that you hold the questions until after we set up the frameworks and the skills, and then some of your questions might get answered in the front end of our time together.
Right. As is typical in the way we design our alliance, if there's anything else that you need, right now from this space, please go ahead and put it in the chat box. What do you need to be curious, to be open-minded, to fully participate and engage? And maybe that's something you want to share, and maybe it's something you want to keep to yourself, but I'm just like to invite you to reflect on what it is that you need over the next 80 minutes that we're together to be fully engaged.
We'll take some time to look at the chat as it comes in. Okay, as we go along, if there's anything that does come to mind that you want to request of us, then please feel free to put that in the chat. Oh, another request, as far as questions go related to content and questions that you would like Priya and I to answer, when you do have them, please put them in the Q&A section of the webinar. It's at the bottom of your screen, so it's separate from the chat. That'll be an easier way for us to be able to answer the questions when we do come to that portion. And yes, the recording will be shared afterwards. And yeah, I love what you're sharing there. Yes, it's being recorded, so don't worry about taking notes. Allow yourself to fully listen. And one thing that Priya and I want to invite you in around this topic especially, we want you to really just be aware and allow your whole body to be present as you experience and take in the material. And as we ask you questions, we want you just to notice what goes on in your system, in your body. Notice where you're open to the material. Notice where you may shut down. Notice what your responses are. And some of this material too can throw off our nervous system. So feel free to take care of your body's needs. And at any point that you want to take a break, look away, rest your feet on the ground, feel the chair holding you in your space, then please take care of yourself around this topic. Okay. I just want to see, I don't think we got any brand new folks, right? Oh, brand new. Great. Welcome. Welcome, Robin. So we are, you know what I will quickly do is just pop up the coactive model um, just to put it on the screen for a reference. We're not going to be teaching the coactive model in this. We really are expanding beyond it, but just so that you've got a reference of it. It is a model that is for coaching, and it is a model. In addition to coaching, it's a relationship model, a leadership model, a communication model. And at the heart of the model, we center the client or the other person that we are in relationship with in the moment, especially in the context of coaching, the person that we are developing and growing. We hold them as naturally creative, resourceful, and whole. And we focus on, there's the cornerstone, I'm highlighting some of the cornerstones, which are the purple blocks. We focus on the whole person. And what that means is we focus on who they are in all aspects of their life, all aspects of who they are internally, their body, their mind, their emotions, their spirit. And we focus on who they are in the systems that they live in the relationships that they've navigated, in the organizations and communities that they've lived into, and how that is impacted, and inform them on who they are and how they see themselves in the world.
One thing I never noticed about this model, Kristen, that I'm just noticing for the first time here, is it's three-dimensional. And if you look at that model, it looks like the box is on a platform. And there's what that tells me implicitly is that there's a box and it's full of all this stuff under the surface.
Mm.
And we're going to talk about those things under the surface today and how to help our clients get awareness of those things, because that's where biases, assumptions, and a lot of the systemic stuff we're going to talk about today, they actually live right under the surface of the top of that box.
And why don't we head there now, just as we pass through, because we've got two frameworks that we want to share with you that Priya is speaking to. And just before we go to the frameworks, we wanted to bring in ICF's definition of coaching. So many of you may be familiar with this definition, the first sentence on this slide, that the ICF defines coaching as partnering with clients in a thought-provoking and creative process that inspires them to maximize their personal and professional potential. And it also insists that we ethically be sensitive to the culture, environment, experience, identity, values, and beliefs of the clients we serve. So part of the reason that we're highlighting this is inclusive coaching, coaching with expanded awareness, is ethical coaching also. What else would you add, Priya?
Well, I would add it's easy to what I love about this definition is that it's so dense, right? Like every word means something depending on what you choose to emphasize in this definition. So if you choose to emphasize the culture piece, you're going to coach accordingly. If you choose to, emphasize identity, you're going to coach accordingly. And I think our job as coaches is to expand our range and to emphasize every piece of that in any given engagement with a client. So culture, environment, experience, these are huge words that mean a lot. And so how do we start unpacking them? Just recognize that this definition is incredibly dense and it is a very tall order. So, Kristen and I, just as a practice as coaches, is to also have enough grace to recognize that this is a tall order. This is a lot of effort and work and cognitive and emotional load to carry, particularly as we're going into those very nuanced areas around belief and culture and differences.
Mm. And um, this leads us nicely to the two frameworks that we do want to offer that does speak to the nuances that Priya just mentioned. So this framework comes from, there isn't a specific reference online, but it does come from many of the social justice spaces and anti-oppression learning spaces and understanding lived experience. And it highlights four different levels of lived experience and how people interact with their world and how they relate to themselves. And these different levels either support or interrupt our expression. And specifically, if we look through the coactive lens, through the principles, these either support our expression of fulfillment, so the expression of our values, our purpose, the qualities of us that are our naturally creative, resourceful, and whole parts. And it also informs our saboteurs. It impacts our choice in life, so the balance principle, and our experience of life, our emotions, our how we I want to use the word experience again. What other words would you use? But just our day-to-day experience of life, the process principle highlights that.
Yeah. And I think what I love about this model is once you know this model and understand what these words mean, for example, intrapersonal is like what's happening inside of me in any given moment. Interpersonal is what's happening between you and me in any given moment. Institutionalized is what's happening in the institutional culture. And systemic is like what informs that culture, what informs what's going on in the institution. So it gets complicated. But what's amazing about this framework is when you know it, you start to see the biases from which you operate and from which your clients operate. And where there are differences in the way that you function and the way they function is really ripe for exploration. So, for example, from individualistic cultures, they might be more biased. People might be more biased to explore the intrapersonal because that's what the culture has defined for us. In more collectivist cultures, we might be more prone to examining the community, examining cultural aspects, or more sort of collectivist questions around who we are and how we define things like fulfillment and engagement and participation in the world.
Yeah, and as coaches, the intrapersonal space is often we're in an interpersonal relationship with our clients, and we're helping our client explore their intrapersonal experience. What are their beliefs, their relationship with themselves, their inner world? And as you've probably already seen with your clients, even outside of this, what we're offering you today, that relationship that people have with themselves is informed by the other levels, informed by their family systems, informed by their relationships with people across similarities and differences, and informed by the social norms and the ideology of their culture and of society, too.
What I found, I'll just like reveal my own bias. When I did my coach training, when I first started doing coach training, maybe like, I don't know, 12, 15 years ago, something like that. Um, my focus and my bias and my assumption for years was very much on the intrapersonal, helping my client examine and explore their experience without so much attention to the antecedents, the cultural antecedents that informed it. There was always some aspect of that, but not so deeply. My coaching has changed tremendously with just different awareness of those different systems as they play out in our experience. Part of that is because I'm trained as a psychologist, and as a Western psychologist. So my bias is to understand the individual from which a lot of that interpersonal work stems. If you take this, like this is a two-dimensional model, right? It's like flat on the screen. But imagine taking this model and flipping it 90 degrees, and suddenly underneath it, you've got each one of these is like, imagine they're like a cone, and each one goes really deep. And so our work can go really deep on each of these levels, and you can see how they are nested. If you can imagine that three-dimensional aspect of this model, they're nested inside of each other. So you can't get away with not paying attention. In fact, I think it would, given the ICF Code of Ethics, it would probably be unethical to not pay attention to the nested dynamics of these levels.
Yeah. So we're going to show one more framework and then we'll go to well, how do we pay attention to this? And we're going to spend some time on that
I know. We have to go
today.
here now because that was so abstract. Let's concretize it. Okay, so if you think about this like an iceberg, so this might be familiar to some of you. If you're familiar with deep democracy or the co-resolve model or the Lewis method, there's sort of three different ways to call the same idea. And you all are familiar with the iceberg model, where an iceberg is like this floating mass of ice that above the surface, we only get to see about 20%. And it's glorious, it's beautiful. There's a lot above the surface that we can enjoy and explore. And if we use this as a metaphor for coaching, above the surface, we can explore things like identity. We can explore things like norms and the social structures that inform our experience. And in CTI, we're also trained to explore things like values for the sake of fulfillment. We're trained to understand and explore perspectives for the sake of balance. We're trained to explore emotion on behalf of our clients and mindset. We do that by articulating what's going on, noticing it, and naming it. We do it through asking questions. We do it through listening, right? So all of these coaching skills we use are great for allowing exploration above the waterline. But the real richness, and that is rich, like actually many of our clients can get so much fulfillment and move the needle on their growth just through that exploration. But for the clients who really want to go deep on their personal experience, there's so much under the waterline that we can't see yet unless we start digging deeper and working as coaches to deliberately lower the waterline into more often treacherous territory, chaotic, messy, sometimes very beautiful. But under the waterline, it's like there's all kinds of waves, there's currents that we can't predict. There are more species, there's more animal life, there's more nutrients. There's like so much more going on under the waterline that is unpredictable. Actually, the only thing that is predictable is that there will be tension and resistance. And I think as coaches, we've got to be very accepting and welcoming and even inviting of tension and resistance, particularly when it belongs to the client and they are in a moment of tension or resistance with themselves. Sometimes our job is to take them there by lowering the waterline. It means you have to have a foundation of curiosity, foundation of safety and courage. It means you have to model those things so that your client is willing and able to go to the places of resistance within themselves. Because here's the beautiful thing about resistance. If we're not afraid of resistance, our clients are less likely to be afraid of resistance. And when we both together are not afraid of resistance, we stand to gain deeper wisdom on behalf of our clients. And it's great I get chills thinking about it because I can often walk away from a call with a client who's just reached a closer level of potential for them. And I feel so great to have been able to witness that. You all know what that's like. And my guess is part of the reason you're coaches is because of that wonderful feeling of elation when your client sees themselves in a new way. And they see that because they have cut through the resistance and the tension. Now, the antecedents of that resistance are often informed by systemic oppression or the institutionalized oppression or even power dynamics on the interpersonal dimension, as we talked about on the previous slide. And a lot of that resistance is internalized, right? We walk around without awareness of our identities and how we might dislike some of our own identities or resist our own identities or not be fully accepting of our own aspects of some of our identities. And so we want to kind of dismantle that resistance, work through it so that we move towards deeper wisdom and shared potential. So I just said a whole lot because that is my soapbox. But Kristen, please react or add to that if you see anything that needs to be added to.
Yeah, well, and it's interesting because it feels like also going to the chat will be valuable here. So I'd love to hear any comments in the chat, and as we invite those in, I'll also just share. I love how you framed that, and also could feel my own experience in that, and especially around certain aspects of my growth. I've been fascinated over the years. I've been coaching for 14, 15 years, and there's been times, like you said, where transformation, evolution felt easy. And there were like big leaps that I did, and then there were the deeper ones that are really intertwined, and I'll have these like amazing moments of um realization and what felt like transformation, and then the recoiling around that. And oftentimes the ones that are that way for me are rooted in what I have been told a good mother is, a good wife, a good daughter, how I'm supposed to show up in the world, what success looks like, and really grappling with those bigger social norms, and trying to step away from them and live what is true and authentic for me. Um, so I was both appreciating your description, but also in touch with my real experience of it.
Good. Yes, thank you.
Mhm. Yeah. There, okay. Did you answer?
Yes. So I do think so. There's a comment here I'm responding to. It says, sounds like helping clients unpack internalized oppression that causes that internal tension. So
Yes.
here's the thing. I think if we have designed an alliance in a way that invites that exploration with safety and courage, then we can go there. And in fact, we should go there because it is one vector through which our clients can reach their potential. And I think that's my job as a coach, is to help my clients reach potential, knowing that there are many vectors to get there. And one of them might be through disentangling the oppression they've experienced in their lives.
Yeah, I also agree with you. I feel that it is our responsibility as coaches to make that step to design with our clients. And I transparently, explicitly say to my clients in the discovery session, but on an ongoing basis, that in our relationship, I want you to know that all aspects of you are welcome. even and especially want to create a safety and get curious what is needed with them to have the aspects that may not be welcome in other spaces in their life. How can we bring that into the coaching space so that they can learn more about who they are and how they want to bring that out into the
It's
world?
amazing how it plays out. It plays out in surprising ways as long as we're open to receiving uh, messages from our clients. And can I share a quick story from a
Yeah,
client? It
yeah,
just occurred to me when you said this. So
yeah.
our identities also very much play a role in the coaching
Mhm.
dynamic. It creates a power dynamic. It creates, like our clients come to coaching with us implicitly with an assumption about who we are and who owns power. We don't often talk about it. In my designed alliance, I always talk about the power dynamic and what is informing that power dynamic. And even if you do that in the discovery, 6 months later, something will pop up. Say, oh, we didn't talk about this, but it's popping up here. So I had a client who hired me. He had interviewed, a bunch of coaches, ended up hiring me. We had this like really great power dynamic conversation. You're a man, you're straight. I'm this, I'm that, and we're like, okay, well, here's the ways in which we'll navigate this power dynamic. And about 6 months into the coaching, I got the sense that he was performing for me.
Mm,
And I stopped and I said, hey, are you trying to impress me? And
mm,
he said, if I'm being honest, for the past 6 months, I've been trying to impress you. You went to Harvard, you went to Yale, you went to Penn. I went to a
mhm,
no-name school and I picked you because of those things. Let's reset the whole coaching, right? It just was kind of like,
mm.
not that the work didn't matter, but it's like this power dynamic was not apparent for 6 months. It was living under the waterline until we got to the place of tension and were able to have a courageous conversation about it.
Wow. Yeah. And I imagine that the coaching, the talk about the water line dropping and reaching into whole
Completely
different depths.
expanded. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Um, there, it makes me think I did, um, one second, because I did write down some examples of how this might show up. Um, Common saboteurs that we are familiar with that have roots in internalized oppression can show up in many different ways. And I'm just going to pop some in the chat here. Um, like, for example, I'm not enough, taught that worth is tied to achievement, productivity, striving, and comparison. So rooted in capitalism. I'm going to pop it in there. There's a few different examples. Staying quiet, not rocking the boat. This isn't um, an exhaustive, these are just a few examples. So there's different identities that may fall in with these examples, but just some that just to share. But staying quiet, not rocking the boat, getting safety through silence, particularly for women identified, BIPOC people, LGBTQ, neurodivergent folks. I have to do it all alone. Self-reliance is rewarded, vulnerability is punished. And that's part of what you were speaking to, the last example too, with masculinity, unhealthy masculinity in our culture, softness is weakness. Needing to, what was the word that you used? Proof or perform for you.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, rather than being able to let his guard down and really be himself with you.
And I want to also just highlight that these are very human. These are
Very.
characteristically human experiences. We all
Yeah.
perform, we all filter, we all censor, we all do things to preserve ourselves. These are all attempts to preserve ourselves. And there's something beautiful about that, especially when we can universally connect over those things and have empathy and curiosity about, well, why and what was the cost to you? If the
Mhm.
cost is erasure and self-abandonment, then I think that's like really fertile ground for coaching, right? Like,
Yeah.
where else are you abandoning yourself? And how does that show up? And, I just had a conversation with a client this morning, Black woman. She said, Priya, you're going to be so proud of me. I have decided not to straighten my hair this summer. And I
Hmm.
like it was like so emotional to say like, wow, for 17 years you have been doing this to be
Mhm.
more palatable in your work environment and you've decided not to do that.
Hmm.
to not abandon yourself anymore.
Yeah. Yep. And you're getting some applause for that example. And I sense it's an interesting statement on her part too, that you'll be so proud of me. And
Yes.
from a coaching standpoint, of course, it's not about you being proud about her, but it is the like her stepping into her authenticity and you championing that
Yeah.
and her knowing that that's an expression of that for her.
By the way,
Mhm.
as a
Yeah.
coach, knowing that my coach is going to bear witness to this big
Yeah.
courageous thing I
Yeah.
did,
Yeah. And
right?
she was witnessed exactly, Banan. Yeah. 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 All right. Well, I feel like that takes us to the skills that we have
Yeah, let's
to
go there.
offer. Okay. Great.
So
I'm
the
gonna
question is,
share.
how do we lower the waterline, right? So first of all, what I've learned about coaching is that my mindset leads to my behaviors, and my behaviors lead to my results. So if I'm going to invest anywhere along that spectrum, I want to invest in my mindset. And so, one of the most powerful mindsets I've adopted as a coach, and frankly, in my relationships, and even as a mom and as a sister and a daughter, is this concept of knowing when to center myself and knowing when to decenter myself. And it is a really active thing I do to center myself and to decenter and to allow someone else the space to be centered. So, centering simply means that I assume that you're coming from your worldview and I accept that. So to accept it, I have to be very curious about it. I have to be very non-judgmental. I have to be very open and empathetic to it. It means the only way I can allow you to center yourself is if I decenter myself. So I keep coming back to the client. I keep a stance that is focused completely on you. Now, here's the thing, when you are coaching in a disproportionate power dynamic where you might have more power or the client attributes more power to you, whether you know it or not, you're automatically centered. And so it takes extra effort to decenter yourself. Why? Because those of us who are, I'm going to make a bit of a bold statement here. Those of us who are underrepresented are used to being decentered. And being centered is very uncomfortable. It can be very vulnerable. And so when a coach is suddenly centering you, it can feel hard. It's why I have clients who ask me things like, well, what do you think? Because they're used to giving the power away, or they've been put in positions to not have the power to be at the center of their lives. And we see this in lots of different examples. And so we know it's uncomfortable. And so there are times when I will center myself for the comfort of my client, but also step right back into a place of decentering, knowing that coaching can be very uncomfortable and I'm here for their growth.
And with what you just said too, Priya, how empowering it can be. And we know this in the coaching space, but this is like I want to highlight with extra emphasis, especially when people are used to being decentered, to have a space where they are centered, they're seen, they're witnessed in the way they want to be seen and witnessed, how much can grow from there and
Yeah,
how
and to
empowering.
give them a taste
Mhm.
of it and say, like, this is within part of this
Yeah.
is within your power to center yourself, and it's hard work, and it's available to you in other spaces too.
Yeah. I also want to highlight the humility that it takes to even have the awareness, the expanded awareness of ourselves as coaches to recognize when we are making assumptions, when we are speaking and seeing and listening from our own biases and preferences, worldview, lived experience, and how that can, um, if we're not aware of it, we can actually recreate the systems and the experiences that people have outside in the world. And so being humble to be able to notice when that is stepping in so that you can decenter.
Yes. And
Hmm.
so you can also play with the levels of systems in this dynamic of centering and decentering. And with a client, I do this with clients who I've known for some time. We have like real deep trust, we have real safety, we've been vulnerable. is I might just ask, like, hey, what bias is operating interpersonally right now?
Mm,
And we'll both kind of take a few guesses. Like, what assumptions have we not named that's actually informing the way we're relating to each other right now?
yeah, beautiful. Yeah. It takes us to some of the skills that we'll go to. So, as you can see, we're talking about the first box here, centering and decentering. And Priya has highlighted using powerful questions to name and bring to surface what's below the waterline or the other levels of 4 levels of lived experience, but really daring to speak to them.
Great. Do you want to talk about saboteur?
Yeah, yeah. Um, with a saboteur, often, I know when I was initially trained about the saboteur, the context of the saboteur, that the way that I received the learning was that it's an individual internalized narrative. And it's a narrative that disempowers, and that it is a very individual thing, an individual responsibility to be able to grow beyond the saboteur, too. And so, what we want to offer is a reframe with compassion and curiosity that this narrative, as we've already mentioned, so the saboteur narrative is a voice that is shaped by the 4 levels. It's shaped by the relationships we've had. It's shaped by the institutions, the schools, the after school activities, the athletics, the churches, the faith institutions that we've gone through, organizations we've worked at, educational systems, um, informs that internalized narrative, and also the systems, the social norms, the ideology, the culture. So when it gets reframed this way, it removes it from being an individual failing or individual pathology sometimes too. Is in coaching, we don't look at saboteurs as pathology, but it can be a way that an individual can relate to their own saboteur. And so when we look at it from the bigger perspective, it removes some of the weight, the individual weight of that narrative, and creates compassion, like Priya has just set up. It's like this, it's very human and very understandable that we've internalized these narratives. And when we can have that understanding of where the origin is, what the cost has been, and how it's protected us, then we can help ourselves and help our clients tap into their agency, to reclaiming parts of them that they want to express that the saboteur is inhibiting them from expressing, and unlearning these social narratives.
I love it so much. And I think I've always, about to reveal one of my biases, but I've always felt that the most foundational saboteur that belongs to all of us
Mhm.
is I'm not blank enough. I'm not tall enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough, blah, blah, blah. I'm not enough, right? Which is the first one you have um in your chat.
Mhm.
And what does it mean to be enough
Mhm.
when we're universally understanding that we're not enough? Which means it must be not us. It must be a cultural, systemic thing. And I think about this client I just shared with all of you who adjusted herself in so many ways to be enough until she exhausted herself and then realized, oh, if I just go back to who I am, I counter that narrative entirely.
Mhm. And how liberating and life-giving that is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Kristen,
So,
if
yeah.
I put your chat, can I share that with everybody? Because it only went to hosts and panelists.
Oh, did it? Sorry. Yes. I thought it went to everyone. Thank you.
Yeah. So, Rhett, I love this comment. I found internalized oppression in the form of saboteur perspective without realizing this was a thing because of the way the saboteur is taught and because of my own privilege.
Mhm.
Yeah, it is. this is the beautiful thing about that comment. It's under the waterline. The
Yeah.
things that are under the waterline are things that we're like, oh, that's just life. Until we give it a name, until we give it attention, until we actually center it, can we see like, oh, this is affecting me in this way, and it doesn't have to be this way. I can redefine.
Yeah, and that is a way of regaining power and agency within the systems too. Yeah. The other piece that I like to highlight too, when it comes to saboteurs, and especially saboteurs rooted in oppression and systems and institutions and relationships, is they have protected us in some way. And sometimes it's not a blanket voice to overcome. Sometimes when these systems still operate as they do, as we know that they do, um, a person with this awareness can choose when they still want to listen to that voice from an empowered place and when it actually is an ally rather than um, something that disempowers them. And that from that place of awareness can then also look at what do I need to do to resource myself, knowing I'm making this choice, which might take more energy, but it is a choice of safety in certain circumstances. So we get to have that level of conversation with our clients too.
I love that.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's an interesting comment here. It's very fascinating to uncover the saboteur voices in our families, our workplaces, our communities. I mean,
Mhm.
you can go even deeper. You can go to generational saboteurs that have been passed down through the generations in your
Yeah.
lineage, um, cultural ones, schools, academic. There's so many different institutions that inform saboteurs that we take for granted as ways of
This
being.
is just the way it is.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Um, So we could quickly just highlight the skills, and then I would love to make sure that we move to the demo also. So one more time, I'm going to pop up the slide and just what we want to emphasize with the skills is we already, as coaches, so whether you are trained with CTI or another school, there are skills that are fundamental to coaching that are applicable in these situations that we just want to emphasize in a way that again expands the awareness and drops the waterline.
Right. So listening, listening beyond level two, listening for moments of inequity, listening for moments of exclusion, listening for moments of tension in a narrative. So going beyond the voice, the tone, the pace, and the words, going beyond that to like listening for these dynamics of assumptions, biases, or oppression. I don't know what level that is, but
It,
it's beyond
it,
level two.
yeah,
Um,
and it's in level three is the way that we look at it. And it's an expanded version of looking at the level three.
yeah. Okay.
Mhm.
Thanks for that language.
Yeah, yeah.
And there's the bit about articulating what's going on. So here's the thing. This is a beautiful place to use those four lived experience levels. So I can articulate what's going on for me intrapersonally without centering myself. I can articulate what's going on between you and me. I can articulate what's going on in our institution, and I can articulate what's going on in the system too, as a way of not being right or wrong, but just sort of tossing it over to my client and seeing what they do with it. They can agree, they can disagree, they can debate, they can resist. It takes us lower it allows us to lower the waterline when I offer an articulation of what might be going on in these different levels and see where they go with it. So powerful questions, and we've given you some examples today. It's like for me, it's like one of the lifebloods of coaching, right? If I'm curious, they just sort of pop out of my mouth without even too much thought. So the antecedent to powerful questions, of course, is deep curiosity. Deep for me, I can access powerful questions when I am feeling connected to my client. That might not be true for everybody. The way that I get connected is through curiosity and empathy. Self-management and curiosity. We just talked about curiosity, but self-management is a really important one, particularly as we've just talked about centering and decentering. Self-management, I think one thing I've learned is, and I'm still learning, is when to insert myself, my voice, my perspective, and when to manage that and keep it in, right? Because I'm very aware of the power dynamic and the centering and decentering dynamics. And what does it mean to manage myself in the context of that power dynamic? Um, if my sharing of self allows the water line to lower, then I'll do it. And if it doesn't, I won't. But it's very unpredictable. We can't always know it. It happens in the context of a relationship with a client. So it does mean that you do have to take some risks as a coach. And I hope you're doing that. I hope you're not following all the rules. Before we got on this call, I said, sure, Kristen, I'll do the demo, but I think I'm going to break a lot of rules. And she said, yeah, go for it. That's what we do. So, um, and then our job, I think, is to reflect and repair. And so I hope that all of us as professional coaches have a regular practice of reflecting and repairing, and sort of acknowledging what we're doing as coaches and how it is influencing the dynamic with our clients.
Um, I'm just going to this screen now. We are going to move to the demo that Priya just talked about. And what we invite you to observe, and we'll set that up in a moment to get a client, is to watch how the skills show up. So watch for, this is an invitation to continue to practice this going forward too. But in the demo, watch how you see Priya or how you sense she's centering or decentering. Also notice and observe your own, as observer, as witnesser of the coaching. If you were watching this demo, what assumptions or biases or thoughts come in that might be urges of centering yourself, and just notice what happens and what you would do in that moment to decenter and get curious. So also watch how she explores the saboteur, drops the waterline to explore the saboteur. So there's a couple powerful questions that are just offerings here. She will use her own questions in the moment, but places powerful questions to look are: how have the relationships, institutions, and systems shaped this narrative, internal narrative for your client? What was the protection this voice offered, the cost? What's the deeper truth of who you are? And what wants to be unlearned, reclaimed, and rewritten? Those are just places to look, to be curious about. We're not giving you a structured template to follow, but also observe how she uses the skills, listening, powerful questions, and articulating what's going on. AWGO is our short form for that.
Question, I just want to answer this question before we go into the
Right.
demo. Can you please reiterate what the water line is? Sure. So the water line is, if we take the iceberg as a metaphor, the water line separates what is conscious above the water line and what is unconscious, which is under the water line. So as coaches, we want to go deep with our clients to help them reach their potential, which means lowering the water line on their unconscious to make their unconscious more conscious.
You're
On that
welcome.
note, should I go ahead and introduce the demo?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So we're gonna do our best and demonstrate these skills and probably other skills and have some fun here. And we'd like to invite one of you to be willing to be coached by me for about, somewhere between 5 and 10 minutes. We don't know yet. And here's what we'd like you to think about if you have this topic, which is this. And Kristen, like, just keep me honest on this topic because I want to make sure we're direction. Um, if you've been able to identify a saboteur alive in your life right now that you're ready to work with, to dance with, or to get rid of, this might be the right time to raise your hand and get some coaching on it. You don't have to know anything about the saboteur except that it exists, and that you want to work on it. Have I framed that up appropriately?
Mhm.
Okay. So if you feel like if this moment is calling you, please just write a few words in the chat box about what you'd like to explore with me. And we just need, 2 or 3 people to write in the chat box, and then I'll just pick one, um, and you'll get to be coached. So take a moment and think about whether you'd like to do that, knowing that, there are 78 people on this call and we don't know each other. Maybe you will be somebody I know, I don't know yet. And it's not really, the situation is, or the conditions for this coaching are not really the typical conditions that we would coach under.
So who would like some powerful coaching with Priya?
There we go.
Great.
Okay, so we have, as a first generation immigrant, my path to greater success or impact is limited. Thank you, Judy. Andrea or Andrea, I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing that right. My saboteur says, making money, good money is not for me. Thank you. Linda, beliefs about what it means to be a good daughter to my 80-year-old declining mother. Corey, the struggler, how it creates performance. Oof, I felt each one in my heart
Mm.
and in my soul. And so I don't have a preference. And so if I pick you, it's not because it probably is because I have some unconscious bias. I just don't know what it is yet. But Kristen, do you have any of these can go? What do you think? There's another
Um,
like to explore the imposter who says to me that I am selling a better image of myself than I am in reality. Oof. Tomoyaga. I hope I've said that right.
yeah. Priya,
Um,
I'll have you decide. I know some of the people that have raised their hands, so I don't want my bias to come in on it. So go with where you're being called.
okay, let's go with Linda. Beliefs about what it means to be a good daughter to my 80-year-old declining mother. Okay, so I picked that one partially because I'm not clear on what the saboteur is, so I'd like to explore it. Um,
Linda, if you could raise your hand with the raise hand function, which is down at the bottom of your screen. You may
She's,
have to click more to find it.
she's a panelist now. Kristen?
Okay, great, great. And I imagine we didn't design this, Priya, but I will go off screen
okay,
and then I will come on and let you know when it's 10 minutes.
okay, sounds great.
Okay, great. All right. Linda, just so that you know, if you want to keep that background, that the settings automatically put that background on. So if you want it there, the coactive one, you can have it. If not, you can turn it off too, and we can walk you through it.
All good.
Okay. Okay.
Hi,
Great.
Linda.
Hi, Priya.
Thanks for volunteering. I'm gonna assume since you raised your hand that you'd like me to coach you.
Yes, but I am nervous.
Yeah, I can understand that. What are the nerves about?
Vulnerability to 75 people.
Yeah, yeah, I feel it too, by the way. So, yeah, we've never met.
Nope, nope.
Yes. So, I'm assuming that there was something that pulled you to volunteer for this. Tell me what that was.
I'm in the middle of trying to figure out how to be different with my mother because there's been a massive upset and argument and a being told to leave her life. And I've just worked at getting myself back in there yesterday. And what you're speaking to today has me really creating self-awareness around how am I going to show up differently in relationship to her because how I was showing up wasn't working.
Mm-hmm.
And what are those cultural biases and expectations that I have been unconsciously setting for myself?
Mm.
And I think I really want to explore those because what I'm sensing is I'm getting in the way of this relationship. she has dementia, she's aging, she's struggling with aging. I'm actually struggling with aging too. And so, part of me has me thinking maybe we're really on the same page and I just can't see it. And maybe I need to start thinking about changing my beliefs and perspectives on what it means to support an aging parent. Does that make sense?
I don't know. I mean, does it make sense to you?
Yes.
Okay, so it makes sense to you. So I heard a lot. I heard you say the word or some version of the word different a couple of times. I heard the word change a couple of times, that you'd like to change your way because it's not working. Have I understood that right?
Yes.
Yeah. And I just to get curious about this, when you say it's not working, tell me a little bit more about like what's the evidence that it's not working?
Her expressed anger towards me a few
Mm.
weeks ago, and then the saying, leave, I don't want you here.
Okay.
And
So
and then go ahead.
yeah. Well, I'm noticing a belief. I'm just going to throw this out to you and see what you think. It's like anger and I don't want you in my life equals this isn't working. For you, for her, for us, for what?
Uh, for both of us.
For both of us. Yeah. For you and your mom.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I've just wondered what else does anger and I don't want you in my life anymore. What else could that mean?
That something isn't working for her. If I got really curious, if I think about what I know about anger with clients, that it often masks something else,
Mm,
i.e., under the waterline going on for her, it comes out as anger. It gets expressed as anger, or disappointment, and a pushing away.
yeah.
But if I got curious, yeah, it would be what's under the waterline for her.
Okay, so if I got curious, I'm hung up on those words. That assumes you're not curious now. How are you now?
Right now with you, I'm curious. With her, too much relationship, water under the bridge stuff,
Oh, the history, I know.
yeah, and getting curious with my mother is just something I have never been able to do.
Ugh.
Haven't wanted to.
Okay, so never been able and haven't wanted to. Are those the sort of the same thing? Like, would you be willing to try that out?
Now that I'm verbalizing it and seeing it with you, I would be willing to try it out. It means showing up from a place of greater compassion, listening, being more coach-like versus being more daughter-like, if that makes
Wow.
sense.
Wow. Okay, so you just named a bunch of identities. There's the daughter and there's the coach,
Oh
and
yeah, great. Yeah.
they're not necessarily the same, it sounds like.
No,
Oh,
no. Oh, they're very, very different. I think I leave my coaching personality outside the door
what's
when
that
I go
about?
into her apartment.
Yeah, so you're very aware that you leave the coach behind you when you become a daughter. What's that about? What decision did you make to get to that point?
I don't know if I made a conscious decision, but I boy, that's a great question. Perhaps unconsciously, I I chose to not integrate the two sides of myself,
Yeah,
that they're very different personalities, and that I have no idea why, but I've chosen to not integrate them.
yeah,
Um, Perhaps due to her dementia, I lose patience,
yeah,
I lose compassion,
yeah,
I get frustrated, and it's an additional responsibility that at times I don't want, and so I think that daughter role shows up more
mm,
than the character traits of a coach.
yeah, yeah. So I'll throw this out there. I think that's very normal. I think we do that. We, again, back to that conversation we were having about our ways of preserving ourselves. So we abandon parts of ourselves. So, like, what's the part of yourself that you've abandoned to be a daughter?
Oh, that's, I think, a deeper question than I can answer. And what parts of myself have I abandoned to be a daughter? I don't know, Priya. That's just,
Yeah. Well,
I,
yeah, I think that's great. I mean, you don't have to know. And I want to share with you where the genesis of that question.
okay.
Felt like me, the image I had in my head was Coach Linda can only be Coach Linda as long as she's not daughter Linda. And so you leave Coach Linda at the door when you play the role of daughter.
Yes, that resonates.
And I'm guessing, I'm going to project for a moment, but I want you to correct this and repair anything that I'm getting wrong. Coach daughter is all those words or coach role, Coach Linda is all those things that you said: curious, compassionate, warm, empathetic, open. And daughter Linda is something else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so what's coming to you? I saw your eyes go up.
The word bitch, pardon my, I know we're
Ah,
recording.
there it is. Yeah.
It just flashed as you described that. That's an embarrassing admission, but I think it's an honest one.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Who is showing up in the dynamic between you and me right now? Which version of Linda am I getting?
You're getting the coach version who's curious, wants to grow and learn, and wants greater awareness.
No kidding. I wanted to check that because I'm like, bitch, I don't see it. But like, what does that look like? Is that something you could show me? Or is that just reserved for your mom?
I could show it if I so chose to. Yeah, it's not very far under the water. It's right there.
I love your
And
honor.
it's
Yeah.
thank you. And it's interesting that you say that, because in conversation with her yesterday, when I finally broke the wall and tried to reconnect, she was very honest and shared with me that from her perspective, she said, I present myself to the world one way and I present myself to her in a different way. And I think that's exactly what we are talking about here. And
Mhm.
that is that is shameful for me.
You have shame around
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Now that it's being pointed out to me and we're touching on it, yeah, I think there's
Yeah.
some shame around that, and shame from a Brene Brown perspective. Not I did something bad, but, shame from her dynamic is, I am bad. And that's what I'm feeling as this awareness is coming up. And
Mm.
then, and then I hear this little voice inside of me, the coach, going, so why? Why are you? Why are you that way?
Yeah. Do you have an answer? Is that interesting to you to answer that question?
It is interesting for me to answer. I don't have an answer now, but I think that absolutely needs some reflection, maybe some journaling, some individual contemplation, and some real looking in the mirror.
Yeah, that's hard work. I appreciate
Yeah.
the disarming you've just done here with me.
Thank you.
And I just want to check what other armor is still up, if any.
In this dynamic between you and I, or between me and her?
Where do you want to go? Which one matters to you?
I don't feel that there's any armor up between you and I. I feel very heard and acknowledged, but also challenged, which I appreciate and respect. I do feel that there is still armor up with her. This is an awareness that has just occurred in the last, what, 6 or 7 minutes.
Yeah.
So it's going to take time and practice
You can
to.
give us another 6 minutes?
Well, I can give you another 6 minutes, but I can't guarantee that armor's
I
going to
know,
go
me
away.
too. I wish I could. If
So,
only human development worked that fast. Okay, well, we're coming to the end of our time. What are your last few words, adjectives, nouns, colors, metaphors, questions, commitments you'd like to say right now?
that I have just observed the power of those roles,
Mm,
that I have observed the value of exploring those with a client,
mhm.
how they can affect who we are, who we unconsciously are being,
Yeah.
and how with the awareness of them, if we choose and are ready to commit, we can begin to shift who we are in
I
the world and
love
how
that.
we show up. And what a beautiful thing for me to practice myself and then be able to do with a client. Thank you for that gift.
Thank you for showing up here, and you're so welcome. Okay, let's close the coaching right now.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Linda.
Thank
And
you.
Kristen, we're going to move to, I need to take myself off camera for just a moment to just
Okay.
decenter,
Okay. Great.
disarm, and I'll do all that stuff. I'll be right back.
Yeah. And Linda, I hear your heart and your tenderness and your honesty in this.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. You're welcome. Yeah. So do we have your permission to talk about the coaching?
I'm sorry.
Oh, you disappeared. That's okay.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah, if you can bring if she's still there, if Linda is still there, if you can bring her back on just to
There she is.
There,
Great.
I got taken
Linda.
out of the meeting and then brought back in.
Okay, great. Yeah, do we have your permission to talk about the coaching?
Oh, please. Yes.
Okay, great. If there's anything that you want to share from the client perspective, then feel free to bring that in.
Okay.
Great. So we will go to debriefing this coaching. We will turn to the chat, and I'm going to start it with a question related to Priya's way of being. What stood out to you around who Priya was, what the qualities that you saw in her were in that coaching? Go ahead and share them in the chat. Deep, spacious presence, curious, definitely curious, right? And compassionate. Yeah, asking a lot of permission, client-led, especially around this, well, it's always client-led and asking permission, but when we are talking about the space of identity, also, the client is in choice on whether they want to go there or not. There was a couple times that Priya, there was a question, is that interesting for you to answer? And there was one earlier on, oh, I've lost it, but yes, definitely asking permission, curious, open, neutral, yes, non-judgmental, courageous, honest, unattached, playful and loving, right? And even though this was a deep, tender, very important topic to Linda, there was a lot of playfulness around unpacking. Great. What else stood out from uh, coaching skills that you noticed? I was reading and asking the question at the same time. And Janine, what I want to speak to is how she kept the power dynamic with the client. Yeah, say more to that. And Janine, if you want to speak to it on the webinar, we can bring you up as a panelist also to speak to it. If not, you can share it in the chat. Blurting, articulating what's going on, dancing with the client. Yeah, and to highlight the skills that we were emphasizing too, her listening was beyond just the individual experience with Linda. It was really bringing in and pulling apart the roles that Linda plays to find out what narratives are there with that too. And come on in, Priya, at any time. I'm going between the
Yeah, I was
chat
gonna say
and
roles that like it's amazing how that emerged, right? That was completely emergent. Roles are often swimming under the waterline, and someone's got to name them. It is part of articulating what's going on by listening in level 3 and lowering the waterline all at once.
Yeah. And I'm just going to build on that. And thank you, Janine, for coming on too. And notice how the separation of roles was new information to Linda. Oftentimes, as clients, we don't necessarily see that we put ourselves in roles too, or have been put in roles also through our lived experience, and we keep living those roles. Janine.
So I've been coaching since 1994, and I have developed bad habits, what I would say. So what I'm really excited about, Kristen and Priya, is how I watched you, Priya, when she said something and you kept saying, what would you like to explore? How is that for you? Because in my internal world over here, I was coming up with all kinds of things that I was saying based on my assumptions, based on how I do things. And so I'm both excited and really nervous because I feel very much in the conscious incompetent place.
Thank you
But
for raising that. Yeah.
Yeah.
It is I will tell you my habit. I also have bad habits, by the way. And I'm always afraid that I'm, doing it wrong. But I think my commitment is to center my client.
yeah, it was, it moves me deeply. It moves me to tears. Yeah. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Janine. Yeah. Yeah, and Andrea, she never, which Janine is speaking to, she never had the answers herself, always flipped it to Linda, but threw in some insights articulating what she was seeing. This is the other piece that struck for me too. Like there was a moment where Priya articulated, I think that's very normal. We do abandon parts of ourselves. And that can be a version of, oh, that's my level 1 as coach. That's my assumption or my bias. And it, for me, it felt like it was used very effectively in service of Linda and in service of naming the bigger system of we do abandon ourselves. And where might you be abandoning? Bringing it back to Linda to center her and her question, asking her the powerful question.
Could I add
Linda.
something around that?
Yeah.
It had me feel validated and heard, but it only happened the one time. So I didn't feel like it was maybe a bias or an excessive thing, if that makes sense. It only happened the once, but it was enough to have me feel heard and seen, and that was important in that space for me to be able to be more vulnerable with her going forward.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's amazing that you say that, because I think the reason it happened one time, which I didn't realize until you just said that, is because I was unattached to the belief.
Yeah.
Right? I don't want to have to convince you that you're abandoning yourself. No way. I'm like, hey, it's normal that we do this. What do you think?
Yeah. Yeah. Anything else that you want to add about the
It is
coaching?
so, I'll just say this. It is so interesting to debrief because I don't even remember the coaching, to be honest. I remember being connected to Linda. I
Yes.
remember feeling, your courage, your energy. Like I remember the experience, but I don't remember saying those things, or I don't remember what you said. It's just like this was an experience that we were in together and we felt it. I remember the emotions, but I don't remember the mechanics.
Yeah.
That's exactly how I feel. If as people are coming out with examples, it's like, okay, sure. But for me, what I take away from an experience is what's the energy? How do I feel now versus before? And not finding the words, but just knowing, okay, there was a shift and I'm going to show up differently. And if somebody said, well, can you articulate? No, I can't articulate it, but it happened and I feel it and I know what I have to do and focus on now.
Mhm.
Priya, can I reflect back one thing that I noticed? Sorry, the lady who just spoke, she said she notices she's created some bad habits over time. And I noticed that I have too in how you coached me. I wasn't aware of you, I don't think, ever sharing, this is what I'm hearing, this is the emotion, or labeling it, or this is what I'm noticing. And I do that too much as a coach. And I
Mm.
see the power in the dynamic of what we had where you didn't do that at all and how powerful that was. So that was a lesson to me as a coach that it's not necessary for
Mm.
me to label and reflect back the emotions that I'm hearing for the client to get awareness.
Yeah, it's so amazing you're saying that because the nuance is like I think we for our own egos, I can check off the box to say that I listened by articulating, right? And there are other ways to demonstrate listening energetically, somatically, lots of other ways. It doesn't have to be a verbal expression.
Yeah.
Mm. Um, and Linda, of course, it's like I heard you say that you feel like you're doing that too much. And it's like all skills, right? And what I'm hearing is we can get into ruts, and this is expanding you. It's around, oh, this is sort of my default that I go to, and I'm seeing that there's more. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you won't lose your strengths within that as a coach. So yeah, hold on to, because I imagine you asking and reflecting back emotions is valuable for your clients too.
Yeah, I bet there's some clients who
Yeah.
really need you to
Yeah.
be doing this. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure there are. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So let's open up the space for questions. There's a couple in the Q&A. And thank you so much, Linda, for volunteering. It is a very
Oh,
brave thing to do.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks,
And
Linda.
also, one thing that we didn't say before the demo, this is being recorded. What we can do, we just want to know if we have your permission to put this out. The plan is to put it out on YouTube. If not, we can probably cut out the demo if you would prefer that it was not. We can check with you afterwards too.
Okay. You want my response now or
If you have your
afterwards?
response now, yep. But if
Okay,
you wanted
I
time to
do.
think.
Had I known it was going to potentially be on YouTube, I would have dressed very differently this morning. But yes, what an honor. You please,
Okay.
please. The demonstration by Priya was beautiful, and yes, please.
Okay. Thank you very much. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
Great. All right. So we will, as we said, we'll go to the Q&A, and as the questions come in, we will continue to answer them. So I just want to check. I jumped to the Q&A, but was there anything we wanted to summarize about that before we go to the Q&A for you?
Well, just to say that there was, lots of skills used in that. The coaching demonstrated a lot of range,
Yeah.
and it did, I think, accomplish what I think we had set out to accomplish, which was to lower the waterline.
Yeah.
So if you decide to rewatch this, next time you can watch specifically on what happened where you can see, oh, this is where we lowered the waterline, and that's how that happened, so that you can bring that into your coaching as well if you're not already doing that sort of thing.
So the first question we have in the Q&A is Andrea's question. How do we manage the worldwide counter movement to DEI? Such a powerful question. And part of the reason we decided to have this topic as part of International Coaching Week, as coaches, we need to evolve with the evolution of the world. This topic has always been important. And especially in these times where there is a counter movement to push against what DEI means to some people in the world. As an organization, as CTI, as Priya and I, two coaches who are passionate about inclusive coaching, we felt that this was a really important thing to offer to coaches in these times.
Yeah, thank you. I'll just add, so much of this is mindset and our own personal values and what we're grounded in. So for me, like asking me to manage backlash or attack or whatever you want to call it would be like asking me to not be me, which I'm not going to do. So there are places I continue to do this work. You can call it DEI, you can call it coaching, you can call it all sorts of things. But living my life in integrity with myself means I'm going to be opening spaces, courageous spaces for people to be who they are and inviting people to be who they are. Whether there's backlash, like part of me is like, bring it on, because that just it just fortifies me even more.
Yeah. The other thing that I'm noticing, I coach a lot of coaches in training and practicing coaches, and more clients are coming to coaches and verbalizing struggles with this backlash that you're talking about, and more vocal and open and looking for a space, especially in this current world, looking for a space where they can feel safe to bring what they're struggling with and how it's impacting them too. So it's just important as coaches that we can hold space and explore
Yeah,
that with
and I
them.
think I keep coming back to, for me, the steel man, or I call it a steel dog, just to degender it, but argument around I have asked the universe, whatever, to bring me clients who are resistant to DEI, so that I can learn more, so that I can be a better person. And so I do. I have a few clients who are like exactly the opposite to me on what they think about DEI. And it has really challenged my coaching. It has really challenged them. And we're in a better place because of it. We're both better humans because of it.
Wow. I just have to share that my body had a visceral response to the thought of that, which would be what I would have to self-manage in the moment. I literally felt tightening right
It's
into
not
my
always good
chest.
self-management. And part of it
Yeah.
is, can I center
Yeah.
myself in this dynamic?
Yeah, right. Yeah. Wow. So we've got a couple minutes left. Let's go through these quickly. I'll shoot the next one to you if you've got it there. Second.
How to explore saboteurs without giving them too much stage and power. I don't know that it's up to me as a coach to discern how much stage and power the saboteurs get. I think that's up to the client to decide in terms of their topic and their agenda. I will go and explore places. I will lift up the rug and see if my client wants to go there. And sometimes I'll push them to go places where they might be uncomfortable going. But how to explore, I think we go back to basics. Listen, curiosity, empathy. Sometimes I find that if clients are very reluctant to go there because the saboteur has taken up so much power, I'll lower the waterline by sharing my own vulnerability about exploring my saboteurs and how scary it is for me to go there. And that somehow implicitly gives permission for them to go there too. Knowing that they're not alone in that exploration, I think, can be very, very powerful.
And what quickly comes up for me around this question is that the saboteur is going to need the time and space that it needs. And so that's also how I hold it is, part of the reason they're here is this part of someone has not been seen, heard, listened to. And so my job is to be that for that person. Yeah. All right.
Are we at time? Oh, we have
Yeah.
seconds.
We have a final slide to share too, but go ahead
Yeah,
with
let's
the
go.
next
Let's go
one.
there, and then I'll just throw this out to you. I love hearing from people after webinars. I feel like we spent all this time together, and then we didn't get to answer all your questions. Be in touch. WhatsApp, email, call me, LinkedIn me, whatever. I love, like, we're all human. Let's be in touch. Let's talk. Let's play.
And I offer that also too. Joni is asking a question. Can you do a session on how to work with those who counter DEI and how to fortify the coach? So Priya, there's
100% sign me up. I'll do it for free.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Awesome. We will hold her to that. And to doing it, not necessarily the free part. You deserve to be paid. Okay, so I think what we'll pause on these questions. We will come to we'll share, since you just offered your people reaching out, we will share a couple things. On behalf of CTI, we are launching something new, coactive coaching practice space. So this is, you can buy a package of 3 75-minute sessions, and these are guided. They are facilitated by CTI faculty, and it's peer-to-peer coaching. So many of the students say that they love the practice coaching, they want to continue it. So if you've been anywhere from fundamentals through to certification, you can sign up for these coaching practice spaces. And for those of you brand new to CTI, we have some discounts that we're offering right now. You can save up to $750 by bundling your courses. And this will be shared in the email that you get with the follow-up, the video after. And then here is our contacts. So you can reach me at wholelifeleadership.com or on LinkedIn. And then Priya, also 2 of her websites here. And I also want to put in, I am going to put in Priya's, specifically her courses that I took that was super valuable. I just have to find the link where I put it.
And I'll put in my email address too.
Great. And wonderful. And
Don't
Denise
all
has
flood
put
me
the
at
link.
once, everybody. I mean,
And here we go. So her Jedi for Coaches, where you could learn more, and her book, Stumbling Towards Inclusion.
oh, thanks for including that.
You're welcome. On inclusive leadership. And then there's also a book, Diversity, Inclusion, and Belonging in Coaching by Salma Shah, that I highly recommend. So thank you all for being with us today. Thank you, staying for a couple minutes after also. And thank you, Joni. Thank you, Andrea. Sending love.